I consider the Trump administration a danger to the world.
Well, he told us he'd take Donald Trump down in 2020. Looks like old George Soros somehow knew those election results were going to be pretty tight. The governor of Minnesota is locking down on Thanksgiving, saying we need to stay safe, but just until a vaccine gets here. Governor, you need to listen to this guy. The Great Reset has nothing to do with vaccinations. By the way, what if Trump refuses to leave the White House? Then what happens to the Great Reset? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Mack coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper with a little good news tonight. I think it's being overlooked, and I think we're being very shallow, that we don't fully comprehend the opportunity that we have right now. Let's think about this. I know it looks like Joey Biden might take the White House. There's a few question marks about that, but I think what we're missing is the fact that we're going to have a faithful Roman Catholic in the White House.
Look, I'm a practicing Catholic. I really do believe that, I believe faith is a gift.
And if you really start adding it up, we've got Catholics, our people, in some pretty powerful positions right now in the country.
Our people? Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, Catholic. Andy Cuomo, Catholic. Tony Fauci is a Catholic, right? Gavin Newsome is a Catholic. I mean, think about it, friends. We have faithful Catholics all over this country that are really pulling the levers, and they're the movers and shakers of the world, And this is good news.
It's good news.
It seems to me that it is. Am I right? Do we have good news over there? Things are looking good. Faithful Catholics up in here, I remember when I don't remember this, but of course we've all studied it when JFK became the first Catholic president. He too was a Catholic, by the way. And he said, I will not let the Vatican or the Pope influence my presidency. Remember that whole bit? Well, it's a little different now because Joe Biden is out there going, well, I think Joe Biden is saying, absolutely, we're going to let the Vatican influence everything we do. Or whatever he says. I'm not always able to follow what he's saying, but it is kind of funny that you have a sort of an inverse. JFK saying the Vatican was not going to influence his presidency, and Joe Biden promising that he will, and no one minds anymore.
And I think that's why, I am so excited about this Pope. We'll disagree on a policy basis, but I don't think there's any fundamental disagreement.
Now, this, it seems to me, is a perfect little synopsis of the Vatican II phenomenon. Mm-hmm. Catholics rise into huge positions of power throughout the world. Nobody cares as long as they're apostate Catholics like the Holy Father. So it's a crazy thing, friends. No, I'm kidding. It is kind of funny though how nobody seems to mind if our politicians are Catholic, so long as they're the right kind of Catholics.
I kind of always thought about it, where I was raised is, although I don't talk about Jesus Christ, but Jesus Christ was sort of the human embodiment of what God wanted us to do.
Did you ever think this whole thing could get as stupid as it is? It's stupid on every level, This is out of control stupid now. Ask a Democrat exactly why they hate Trump so much. What did he do negatively to impact you so personally that now, even in apparent defeat, he's dominating you? You can't stop thinking about what did he actually do? I know he fixed the economy, he lowered unemployment. He established, more peace in the Mideast than we've seen in our lifetimes. He did some things that were pretty good, established a booming economy, the best in a long time. But other than those things, what exactly did he do to tick you off so bad? Now, the answer that the Democrats usually come up with is, well, unfortunately, it's usually a flurry of F-bombs. I don't know what these folks would do without the F-bomb. There wouldn't be, like, if you bleeped the typical Democrat response to why you hate Donald Trump, it would just be beep, because they just, they can't say anything without that. But beyond that, they tend to sound something like this.
Are you protesting Donald Trump?
Yes.
What's the policy that you object to?
All of it.
Just like the things he says about women and like the racism.
Like what?
Too many names. Yeah. He does not support other races.
He's got too much money.
I think that he is entirely un-American in the way that he goes about his politics.
He's very homophobic and he's racist, and he's just fear-mongering.
That's enough of that. I mean, these poor kids, they have no idea. And sometimes you just got to start wondering if maybe what's going on here is it really all does boil down to a hatred of the man because of the pro-life position. I mean, I think that's what it is. That's about it, I guess, right? I don't know what else they'd be hating on him for. I mean, and I wonder if these folks actually think that what's coming to this nation is not going to touch them, not going to affect them negatively, just because they voted for Biden, just because they're a Democrat. I mean, man, have they learned nothing from history? Do they think that the German people back 50, 60, 70 years ago who supported the National Socialists early on somehow escaped the ruthlessness and the starvation and the Holocaust of that regime? I mean, the people starved, the cities were bombed, the young men were killed, and the high command of the mighty 1,000-year Third Reich were murdered, executed, or committed suicide in the end. You're not going to get out of this just because you voted for Biden. I mean, what they're trying to do is destroy the country. What's coming is not going to be fun. He is going to lock us down. He's going to mask you up. He's going to sell out this country to China. He's going to hand it over to the wackos in Davos and the United Nations. You see, that's going to impact everyone. And that's why it's actually kind of sad, to think these poor people think this is just politics. This is not politics anymore. And what they're saying now, these Democrats, these progressives, they're absolutely, it's nonsensical, They're shouting, defund the police. It's just so woke. And then they shout, tear down the border wall. That's just brilliant. If you guys defund the police in the cities of America, do you really think you're going to need a border wall?
The nation erupted into scenes of chaos, violence, and widespread destruction into the early morning hours. Dozens of American cities up in flames after some protests turned into riots, often followed by looting as a nation simmering with unrest unraveled.
Looks like fun, doesn't it? And I'm sure that immigrants from all over the world are just champing at the bits to get in here right now, right? They're going to be flocking into cities like Portland and Minneapolis and New York because it looks so much fun. If you're a pyromaniac, if you're an arsonist, it's awesome. Come on in. I live here in Minneapolis, one of these big cities, and everybody's getting out. Don't you get it? That's coming to this country all across the board. You don't get out of it just because you were, cajoled and hoodwinked into voting for this senile, crazy old man and his little friend, Kamala, whatever. And now Minnesota is locking down again, Here we go again. COVID's back. No more than 10 people can celebrate Thanksgiving together this year. Inside or outside, you can't have celebrations. As our beclowned governor has convinced himself now that if we just hold on a little while longer, if we just, engage in this 15 years to slow the spread, years, that everything's going to be fine once the vaccine gets here, because the vaccine's going to save us, is what the guy says.
It's simply important for us to understand what we know 8 months into this, what spreads this thing, who gets it and is more likely to spread it, what's happening with asymptomatic spread, all, again, to make sure we don't overwhelm the hospital system, we don't overwhelm the staffing that's at those, and we buy ourselves that time towards we get to a vaccine.
What's really tragic here is I think our little governor actually believes him. He thinks it's true, and that's even worse. He keeps thanking us for our cooperation because we're saving lives and all this stuff. He believes it because they're not bringing him into the loop. He's just a guy from flyover land. See, because the global vaccination thing, it's part of this, but that is not the ultimate objective. That's an end that can't be easily achieved. And what they want is they need time here to set up for the Great Reset, the Great Green Reset, where everything's going to be reimagined. This is what they're actually saying about vaccination.
It's even aggravated by the question about the vaccine itself. We don't know yet, for example, is one dose sufficient? Do you need 2 doses? In what interval? Do you have even to be vaccinated every year?
See this whole thing, friends? Really not about the virus. It's about revolution. And again, I'm not making this up. That's what they've been saying. We've been reporting on this for months. It's about a revolution, a worldwide economic, social, moral, and green environmental revolution called the Great Reset.
The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our old systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century. It has laid bare the fundamental lack of social cohesion, fairness, inclusion, and equality. Today is the beginning of a global mobilization effort to rally all forces behind this Great Reset initiative.
Now is the time for me to get over myself. I know what you're thinking. Can these weird characters with the German accents looking like something straight from Central Casting, can they actually pull this off? I mean, in the movies, they always fail in the end, right? And people are really, really starting to make fun of these clowns.
It is obvious that we are in the midst of the most severe crisis the world has experienced since World War II.
I am Ernst Stavro Blofeld.
75 years ago, countries and people came together to shape the post-war global order.
Back in the 60s, I developed a weather-changing machine, which was in essence a sophisticated heat beam, which we called a laser.
Which brought us decades of peace, increased global cooperation, and prosperity to hundreds of millions of people around the world.
Gentlemen, I have a plan.
Can they pull it off? I don't know. We're going to wait and see. What is it going to look like exactly? Does anybody have a vision? Have they imagined the future? Have they even tried to actually imagine what this is going to look like? I don't know. I don't know what they are. Are they just power drunk? Are they Satanists? Are they drug addicts? I don't know. But they're goofy, aren't they? And the truly preposterous reality of this whole thing is that if Donald Trump, if he loses, and if the Senate goes to the Democrats, these three stooges are going to be in charge. Nancy's going to be in charge of the House, Chuck's going to be in charge of the Senate, and Joey's going to be snoozing away in the Oval Office. They have a combined age of about 240 years old. What's going on? And I'm sure they're going to get great endorsements for Geritol and Depends, but really? These guys are going to dominate the whole world? Here's the glorious leader of this triumvirate of geriatrics.
A happy St. Patrick's Day. Perhaps as we have St. Patrick's Day lunch, we can have a moment of what? A moment of comedy. That's
enough. Once again, I feel like I'm being mean, like we're making fun of the old people. But friends, I show you this clip so that we can kind of get ourselves up here. This is not a formidable adversary. I realize we're up against demons, but we have the prayer part of this and the mass part of this and the spiritual part of this down pretty much. I think maybe we can beat these people, We need to stay focused. Trump showed us exactly how vulnerable these little lizard people are, didn't he? They have been in a tailspin. They've been acting like crazy people. They've been out of their heads. Remember this? And ripping up the speech. And here's a prediction. In a few months, the Miss Me Yet Trump billboards are going to start popping up all over the world, right? That probably is already happening. I don't know, but it's inevitable. We know they cheated. Of course they cheated. We weren't the only ones who were predicting that they would cheat months ago.
We face a serious prospect now of massive voter fraud. And the question is, when we talk about re-electing Donald Trump, are they going to leave it up to us? I don't think so. The plan is to rig this election this time.
Yeah, how did we know this? Were we prophets? No. We knew this because there was way too much on the line for these people to leave the U.S. election up to a pro-life, pro-God, pro-country coalition that, let's face it, rocked the mighty globalist establishment from the UN to the Vatican.
We will never let radical socialists destroy our economy, wreck our country.
2 days after Donald Trump gave that speech, the 89-year-old leftist weirdo billionaire George Soros made an emergency intervention where, at Davos, once again, warning that the U.S. 2020 election will determine the, quote, fate of the whole world. Now, in the context of Davos, take a look at this one more time. This is a month after Donald Trump addressed Davos and stuck the MAGA finger in their face. Here's what Francis, the Vatican, and Jeffrey Sachs had to say in response.
And it is a dangerous country right now. It will be absolutely dangerous if Trump wins re-election. Trump wins re-election. Trump wins re-election.
What does that show you? What does that tell us? That they are incredibly vulnerable. So much, though, that from January to November 3rd, it was very clear to most of us that they were going to use COVID to derail the Trump train. Remember? They see him as a threat on many levels, not the least of which, by the way, is his willingness to stand with pro-life, pro-family, pro-God Americans.
It is my profound honor to be the first president in history to attend the March for Life.
You see? That's why he's a threat. So it's absolutely within the realm of possibility that people are using this very serious pandemic, this virus that comes out of Chinese, communist China. They're using it to take this guy out because the United States does present a threat to the New World Order. Now, the only reason you cheat in an election is because you know you can't win, right? And they knew they couldn't win, which is why they cheated. You know, why did they have to cook up the phony impeachment? Why did they have to use COVID to terrorize the nation and then blame Trump for it? Why did they have to radicalize their base finally to go into, riots and looting and burning in our cities? And then why did they have to rig the election after all of that? This is a weak body, friends. This isn't as strong or as powerful as they want us to believe. That's what the last 4 years have shown us. And even still now, in an apparent victory for Joey Biden, they're still terrified of this guy. He's still in their heads. They can't get him out of their heads, can they? It's actually kind of amusing. And here's the thing. They sort of created him. At least they helped to create him, the Trump phenomenon. Because they could have played Trump just to their advantage, as we did, on matters of theology and philosophy and religion. Well, let's face it, Donald Trump was more in their corner back in 2016 than he was in ours. But the left, no, they didn't see any of that.
I mean, he's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk, he's a dog, he's a pig, he's a con, a bull artist, a mutt.
So in a lot of ways, the left just missed an opportunity. But they kept on pushing him. They pushed him further and further into our camp, more so than anyone ever expected or anticipated, more so than I ever thought he would be, standing on the mall in D.C., defending human life, mentioning the name of Jesus Christ many, many times. So they created this juggernaut now, this Trumpian juggernaut that morphed into the most powerful populist movement in the history of our country. So who won this thing again? I mean, they're out there in the streets right now. They're not celebrating Biden. Nobody wants Biden. He's just president, not Trump, right? They're not celebrating him. They're shouting, F Trump, F Trump. That's because that's all they have. That's all they got right now. That's all they're ever going to have, with this situation. And with this tired old Barabbas that they just crowned their king, Joey Biden. And so now what are they going to do? Now they're even more desperate. They're not happy. Demons that they are, they're not satisfied. They're not joyful. They're going to cancel us. Here comes the cancel train. Here comes the cancel culture. Ooh, that's really scary. They're going to punish us. They're going to persecute the Christians again. Really? Back to that one again? Don't they realize our church rests on the bones of little martyrs whose stories we tell our kids and have been telling our kids for generations? We're so proud of them, and we understand what happens through martyrdom, through persecution. Mighty empires fall, and Christianity rises every time. And yet these people are out there, as soon as they run out of ideas, even in 2020, all they can do is go back to the lions, Go back to the guillotines, go back to the gulags. So clueless are they, too clueless, in fact, to realize that persecution of Christians only makes it painfully obvious to the whole world that their revolution has failed. You see? As soon as they start threatening to cancel us, it's because they knew they couldn't change what's up here and what's in here. They failed. They even got one of their own on the throne of St. Peter, and they still failed. The Catholic vote went to Trump. Thanks very much, Francis. Right? We're all still here. We're not going anywhere. And by the way, footnote, we don't abort our children. So we're going to be here long after we're all gone, if you know what I mean. And at the end of the day, we will never be like them. Never. We're never going to be animated by sheer hate like they are. And I can prove it to you. Biden says he's now the president-elect. Well, we'll find out once everything's counted. And if it's true, guess what? We're not going to be out there burning our cities. We're not going to be hurting anybody. We're not going to be beating up the cops. We're not going to be tipping over statues. Now, why is that? Because we will never be them. We will never become them. And I think really, friends, at the end of the day, that's why they hate us. Because we're not defined, for one thing, by the temporary occupants of the U.S. White House, for heaven's sakes. You know, because we believe in things just a little bit more important, like family, for example. Family is more important than politics. And we choose life over death, and that's pretty important. And that's why we continue to smile. We're still smiling, even if Trump loses. God bless you, Donald Trump. Thank God for the past 4 years. And if you lose, we're going to keep on fighting. You know what? Our affiliation, our identity, if you will, is not political. It certainly isn't Republican. It's Christian. And it's American. And Trump just united 100 million Christian Americans against atheism, against socialism, against this stupid New World Order. Sorry, friends, I don't see a defeat there. Yeah, I get it. We're heading for some really tough times. These people are animals. Yeah, it's going to be unpleasant. But so is everybody else heading for really tough times. Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter anymore because this isn't about Democrats and Republicans. Now, this is about patriots versus globalists. This is about the children of light versus the children of darkness. Guess what? The children of light just were united in the most powerful forces on earth over the past 4 years. Patriotism, life, family, God, those types of things. And even politically, friends, you know, what, 12, 13, 14, I'm not even sure what the count is up to now. You know, pro-life women won seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. Who saw that coming? And that's because of Trump. Down ticket, Trump cleaned house, you know. Mm-hmm. A Catholic mother of 7 now sits on the U.S. Supreme Court. Holy cow. And great things are happening at the state level in every single swing state that allegedly went to Biden. See, the children of light, friends, are still standing. They're still in this. We're not going to let this destroy us. We're not done here. This is we understand that what has to happen ultimately is a divine solution. Politics, the White House, Donald Trump, those are all temporary things that we're trying to use for the larger objective, which is to restore Christianity to this country, you see? And if we had any doubts on where this is all heading, let me close on this. I mean, God, in his providence, has sent us one of his own to make it perfectly clear that this isn't over, that God isn't dead, and that he's not going to be mocked much longer. His church, which right now is suffering so much under Pope Francis, this church will still be standing, despite guys like Francis, long after Biden and Soros and Gates and Bergoglio are dust in forgotten graves. You see, this is going to pass. Just look at this photograph. I'll throw it up on the screen. Look who's sitting in the choir next to the homilist here. Could Blaise Fopich possibly, or anyone else in that church that day, could they ever have imagined that a few years later, that powerful man speaking from the podium would be resisting Francis to his face, would be calling out Vatican II, would be writing for the remnant? Could they ever have imagined such a bizarre eventuality? And that's exactly what happened. What's the lesson? Never, ever count God out. Never, ever count out the children of light, you know? And if the other side, if the children of darkness now, if they're going to start loading us up into cattle cars again, let's not forget how that worked out the first time around. Not too well. You know, the losers of the Nazis and the Soviet regimes, those guys, the losers, are heroes. And in fact, they're household names now, 50, 60 years later. Can't think of any names of the Nazis other than the high command maybe, but I'll bet you know these names. I'll bet you know who Father Maximilian Kolbe was. Edith Stein, Sophie Scholl, Klaus von Stauffenberg, Franz Jägerstätter, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, Father Walter Sissek, Blessed Mary Stella and her 10 companions of the Sisters of the Holy Family of Nazareth, executed by the Gestapo in August of 1943 in Poland. See? All canceled by the New World Order of that time, by the 1,000-Year Reich, you know, only to rise again, glorious and immortal in the pages of history and indeed in the book of life. You see, that's what we're talking about here. This isn't politics. This is a spiritual war, and you got to stay engaged politically, but ultimately this is this is for God to sort out. And I think that when God sorts it out, it's going to be when we turn back to him. And that's the whole point of this. So let's keep it in focus. I know it's pretty frightening right now. We did a video on Davos. I get it. The Great Reset is coming. So I'm not minimizing that. But on the other hand, just because they say they want to build their Tower of Babel does not mean they're going to pull it off. So let's use the next couple of months to prepare, to prepare for battle. First thing we need to do is we need to stay connected, right? We're done with big tech, friends. We're done with Facebook and these characters, right? Social media. That's not an option anymore. They are the far left. They are the baddies. We need to stop complaining about them and set up alternatives, which is exactly what we're doing right now, So let's stay in touch, first of all, because if we get all split apart, which is what could happen if we rely totally on leftist social media, it's going to be a problem. So click, and I'm talking about now, because I think we have 2 months to make this happen, to really set this infrastructure up, to set this thing up. Click right down below here, the free Remnant Updates link. As it says it's free because it is free. It takes you a second. And that way we can stay in touch. Every time we post a video, you'll know about it, whether Mark Zuckerberg likes it or not. You see? Sign up for RemnantTV.com. We're appearing on a couple different formats, including our own, called Remnant-TV.com. Sign up today. Again, right down here. Just takes a second and it's free. This is a totally independent platform on an independent and pro-Christian delivery network around the world. So far, it's performing very well. It's up and going. But we need you to spread the word. Let people know that we have the alternative. I'm not going to go to BitChute with all the stuff that's over there. If we can set up our own Catholic network, eventually we're going to allow people just like YouTube to join, put their own videos up, become members that way. That's all coming. We've got the vision. We got the thing in place. We've been preparing for this for a long, long time. And if Trump now, if he loses this election, of course, if he does, it's through cheating. But it's not the end of the world. Nor will it be the end of that coalition. We've been through bad times before. I've told you stories from the early 1970s when everybody thought we were nuts. There was no coalition. We couldn't even go to Mass. And Mass in the basements of our homes. You see? We've been through some really, really dark times. We can get through this one. We know how to fight. We have more allies. We have more clarity. We have more hope right now than ever before. And I know because I've been there. I've been here for 50 years. I remember what it was like. And right now we have a better opportunity than ever, even though January is looking pretty scary. We can beat this with God's help, with Our Lady's help. So let's keep in touch. Let's not get demoralized. Let's not get down, friends. Keep the faith. This is far from over. And in the end, the revolution, happily, will always consume itself as revolutions always do. All we need to do is hang on and be confident that God's will be done. I'm Michael Matt for Remnant TV. Keep the faith, and we'll see you next week.